Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to Purposes Cross, where I hope that people who are called by Jesus for different purposes cross paths and exchange ideas. In this video, we continue with our series of devotions on the Psalms, and today we will deal with Psalm 23. This is the second of two videos on Psalm 23. In the previous video, we looked at the meaning of the psalm from the perspective of God's provision and protection. We saw that there is a middle section that has a darker tone than the rest of the psalm. In this section, the psalmist walks through the darkest valley and encounters enemies. While David was speaking of the general difficulties we face during life, and while he was giving us assurance of God's provision and protection, his words also give us a startling reminder. Sheep were not and are not pets, they are livestock. And the primary purpose of livestock is to do work for humans and to be a source of food. We domesticated these animals primarily to serve our needs. Horses help us travel longer distances. Cattle help us plow fields, carry heavy loads, and provide us with milk. Sheep provide us with wool and milk. But more to the point, cattle and sheep are sources of meat. There will come a day in every sheep's life when its owner decides that the only service it can provide is as a source of meat. In other words, calling God my shepherd is to recognize that my life belongs to God and that He could, on any day, decide that I could best serve Him with my life. A story is told of the great Rabbi Akiba from the 2nd century. He had supported Shimon Bar Kokhba as the Messiah and rallied with him in an attempt to overthrow the Romans. When Bar Kokhba was defeated, the Romans sentenced Akiba to death by flaying him alive and combing his skin from his flesh. When it seemed to the Romans that he was experiencing no pain, the Roman consul asked him if he was a sorcerer. How else could he not have any pain, right? In response, Akiba said, I am no sorcerer, but I rejoice at the opportunity now given to me to love my God with all my life. Seeing that I have hitherto been able to love him only with all my means and with all my might. And as he recited the Shema, he died with the words Adonai Echad, that is, God is one, on his lips. This is what it might mean to be a sheep in God's flock. He may ask any of us to serve him with our lives through death, just as Akiba clearly understood and demonstrated. If our understanding of Psalm 23 is only that of a shepherd taking care of the sheep, as in the common depictions of Jesus as the Good Shepherd, then we have an inadequate view of what it means that God is our shepherd. Indeed, it is precisely because we have this cuddlesome view of Jesus as the Good Shepherd that many Christians are not ready for the difficulties that they face in life. We think that God's only role is to provide and protect. But nowhere in Scripture are we given the promise of such security. Rather, David tells us that Yahweh the shepherd leads him on the right paths, but these right paths turn out to be in the darkest valleys, in which, as we have seen, we may be asked to serve God with our very lives, because in those darkest valleys we encounter enemies. You see, following Jesus is not supposed to make life easier. Becoming a Christian is not supposed to bring you into a realm of comfort and security. Rather, becoming a Christian brings you into a mode of being where you realize that your life has already been forfeited and that you no longer have any claim on it. As Jesus said, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. This is not a call to self-fulfillment and self-discovery. This is self-sacrifice to the point of death. But if we keep that in mind, then even the words, my cup overflows from Psalm 23 take on new and ominous significance. While in the psalm, this refers to God's provision for David in the presence of his enemies. If we draw a parallel with Jesus' prayer, Father, if it is possible, take this cup from me, we come away with a different understanding. The cup that overflows in the psalm could be the cup of suffering that God has in store for us. Unfortunately, we have watered down this psalm, focusing only on the supposed promise of security and comfort to the exclusion of the darker meanings inherent in the text. But if the life of faith is a life in which we expect suffering even to the point of death, then we will not be easily discouraged or disappointed with God when we realize that He is asking us to be faithful while we suffer, or even through our deaths.